Hate doesn't always scream. It whispers. It hides in the little things people do, or more often, don't do. And if you're not paying attention, you'll confuse hate for indifference, or worse. You'll excuse it as just someone's personality. But here's the truth. When a person truly carries hate for you, it leaks out in specific, undeniable ways. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Let's talk about the signs that reveal someone doesn't just dislike you, they hate you. A lot. When someone truly hates you, one of the clearest ways it shows up is in how they respond to your success. Pay attention to those little moments when you achieve something, big or small. Maybe you got a promotion at work. Maybe you finally hit a personal goal you've been working toward, or maybe you just had a win in your day that meant a lot to you. A person who genuinely cares about you, even if it's not their victory, will feel some sense of pride or happiness on your behalf. They'll clap for you even if no one else is clapping. But when someone carries hate for you, they can't stomach the idea of you shining. They can't celebrate you because your success is like a mirror reminding them of what they don't have or who they wish they were. Instead of encouragement, what you get is dismissal. They'll say things like, "Oh, that's not really a big deal," or, "Well, anybody could have done that." They take what you've worked hard for and reduce it to nothing, because in their mind, the less special it seems, the less special you seem. That's hate disguised as casual conversation. Other times it comes out as sarcasm, as if mocking you takes away from your accomplishment. You tell them something good that happened, and they make a joke about it. But underneath that joke is bitterness, resentment, and an inability to let you enjoy your moment. What's worse is how subtle it can be. Hate doesn't always show up with loud words or outright confrontation. Sometimes it's in the absence of something that should be there. You share your good news, and they just nod, no smile, no excitement, no acknowledgement. That's not because they didn't hear you. It's because they heard you too well, and what they heard threatened the way they feel about you. They can't celebrate you because to them, your win feels like their loss. It's not just about dismissing your success. It's also about twisting it back on you. Maybe you got a raise, and instead of saying congratulations, they say, "Well, must be nice to have connections." Maybe you got recognized for your hard work, and they say, "Wuss, you're the boss's favorite." They don't let you own your win. They reframe it as undeserved, as if you stumbled into it rather than earned it. And that's the danger, because if you're not careful, you'll start questioning yourself. You'll start wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you didn't deserve it. Maybe it wasn't as big of a deal as you thought. Hate loves to plant doubt in your head. And the truth is, when you're around someone who can't celebrate you, it chips away at your spirit, because success is meant to be shared. Accomplishments are meant to be enjoyed with people who clap the loudest, not questioned by people who clap the quietest. When someone refuses to see the value in your wins, what they're really saying is they refuse to see the value in you. And that's not dislike, that's hate. So, when you notice someone twisting your success into their insult, when you notice that every victory of yours feels like a threat to them, pay attention. Because that isn't someone who just doesn't get you. That isn't someone who's too busy to celebrate you. That is someone who hates you more than they will ever admit. One of the clearest signs that someone doesn't just dislike you but truly hates you is how they respond when life knocks you down. See, it's easy to know who's for you when everything is going well, when you're smiling, achieving, moving forward. Everyone looks supportive when the sun is shining. But when the storm hits, when you fall flat on your face, when things don't go the way you planned, that's when hate shows its real face. Because a person who hates you doesn't just sit on the sidelines. They secretly root for your failure. You can feel it in the way they react. When you stumble, there's a spark in their eye they can't quite hide. They may try to cover it with fake sympathy, saying things like, "Oh wow, that's tough." but there's an undertone that sounds just a little too satisfied. They might even offer empty words of comfort, but their body language says something different. The pause before they speak, the slight smirk they can't fully control, the way they change the subject quickly after. Those are little cracks in the mask of politeness that hate can't quite patch up. What makes it even more dangerous is how they use your failures as proof against you. They don't just observe what went wrong, they store it. They bring it back up later. They use it to reinforce the narrative in their mind that you're undeserving or incapable. When you make a mistake, they don't treat it like one bad day. They treat it like confirmation of who they believe you are. They take your low moments and weaponize them, not just in conversations with you, but in conversations about you. And that's the thing. People who hate you don't need your success to fail. They need your failure to win. You'll notice it too in how they respond to your struggles compared to others. If someone else faces a setback, they're encouraging, supportive, maybe even helpful. But when it's you, they go quiet, they go cold, or worse, they show relief. Because to them, your stumble feels like justice, like balance, like life finally knocking you down a peg. Hate doesn't want you on equal ground, it wants you beneath them. Sometimes it's not even about words, it's about the lack of them. When you go through something tough, people who care will check in, they'll ask how you're holding up, they'll want to see you rise again. But someone who hates, you won't extend that hand. They'll stay silent because your pain feeds them more than your healing ever could. Silence becomes their way of enjoying the show without admitting they bought a ticket. And if you've ever been through something hard and noticed that certain people just disappeared, ask yourself why. It's not always indifference. Sometimes it's satisfaction. Sometimes it's because being there for you would have robbed them of the private joy they feel watching you fall apart. Hate doesn't want to pick you up. It wants to step over you. So when you see that pattern, when someone's comfort seems too comfortable in your losses, when they light up a little too much at your setbacks, understand what it means. Because a person who quietly celebrates when you fail isn't neutral, they're not misunderstood, and they're not just keeping their distance. They hate you, and they hate you a lot. Disagreements happen all the time. We don't all think the same. We don't all make the same choices, and naturally, people are going to clash over opinions. That's normal. That's healthy even. But here's where the line gets crossed. When someone no longer keeps the conversation about what you did or the decision you made, but instead they make it about who you are. That's when you know it's not just disagreement. That's when you know it's hate. See, there's a huge difference between saying, "I don't agree with what you did," and saying, "You're a terrible person." One is about your action, the other is about your identity. Hate doesn't attack the moment. It attacks the core. A person who hates you won't stop at pointing out mistakes. They'll tear into your character. They'll label you, define you, and reduce you to the worst interpretation they can find. It's not, "That was careless." It's, "You're worthless." It's not, "I don't like how you handled that." It's, "You'll never be good enough." And if you listen closely, you'll notice how intentional it is. Hate wants to cut deep enough that you start questioning yourself. They'll say things that target the parts of you that are hardest to defend, the parts you may already feel insecure about. And once they see that it hurts, they'll circle back to it over and over, because that's how hate keeps its grip. A caring person, even in anger, wants resolution. A hateful person wants destruction. The danger is that it doesn't always sound like rage. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's disguised as just being honest or telling it like it is. They wrap their attacks in casual phrases so it doesn't sound like hate, but the intention behind it is the same. When someone says things that strip away your dignity, instead of addressing the issue, that's hate with a mask on. They don't want to solve the problem, they want to make you the problem. And think about how different that feels. When someone criticizes a choice, it stings, but it gives you room to reflect, maybe even to grow. But when someone criticizes who you are, it leaves you with nothing to fix, nothing to learn from, just a wound. That's the point. Hate doesn't want you to change for the better. Hate wants you to believe you can't change at all. It's not constructive, it's destructive. You'll notice this especially in patterns. If every conversation, every argument, every moment of conflict somehow ends with you being selfish, or lazy, or fake, that's not feedback. That's character assassination. They've decided who you are in their mind, and they'll keep pushing that label until you either accept it or break under it. What's worse is how subtle it can spread. Once hate defines you as something, they'll spread that definition to others. They'll tell people, "Oh, that's just how they are," as if your entire being is summed up by the insult they've chosen. And now, it's not just you fighting against their words internally. It's you fighting against the version of you they're building publicly. That's not disagreement anymore. That's hate trying to rewrite your identity. So when you notice that shift, when the conversation is no longer about actions, but about who you are at your core, take note. Because that's not someone who's trying to understand you or even argue with you. That's someone who hates you and hates you deeply. One of the most painful ways hate shows itself isn't always through words, but through absence, through being left out, through being intentionally excluded. When a person really hates you, they don't just disagree with you, they don't just mock your success or root for your failure, they make sure you feel invisible. And it's not by accident. It's calculated. They want you to know you weren't thought of, you weren't invited, you weren't considered. Because to them, the act of shutting you out is a quiet way of cutting you down. You can see it in the little things first. The group gets together, but somehow you never get the text. Everyone is in on a conversation, but your name never comes up. Plans are being made right in front of you, but no one bothers to ask if you're free. And at first, you might convince yourself it was just an oversight, that maybe they forgot, that maybe it wasn't personal. But when it happens again and again, it's not coincidence, it's intention. Exclusion becomes their way of showing you where you stand with them on the outside, and that's what hate does. It isolates. It uses silence and absence as weapons sharper than any insult, because rejection in its quietest form still stings the loudest. When someone truly hates you, their goal isn't just to disagree with you. It's to erase you, to make you feel like you don't matter enough to be included. And that's why it hurts so much, because inclusion is a basic human need. Everyone wants to feel like they belong somewhere. Hate strips you of that, not by yelling, but by ignoring. What makes it worse is the way they disguise it. If you were to call it out, they'd probably shrug and say, "Oh, I didn't think you'd want to come," or "I didn't think it was a big deal." But it is a big deal, because people who care about you don't assume you don't want to be included. They make space for you. They make sure you know you're wanted, even if you decline. People who hate you make sure you never even have the option. And think about how strategic it really is. By excluding you, they're not just cutting you off from moments, they're cutting you off from connections. They're making sure your voice isn't in the room, your presence isn't felt, your influence isn't part of the group. Exclusion is one of the easiest ways to disempower someone, because if you're not there, you can't contribute, you can't be heard, you can't be seen. That's not an accident. That's hate playing the long game. And here's the thing, sometimes exclusion hurts more than open conflict. When someone argues with you, at least they're acknowledging you exist. At least your presence matters enough to spark a reaction. But exclusion, that's a colder kind of cruelty. That's saying, you're not even worth the energy of a response. And when you experience that enough times, it can break you down in ways you don't even realize. It makes you second guess your worth. It makes you wonder what's so wrong with you that people would rather erase you than acknowledge you. But the truth is, it's not about you. It's about them. Their hate is so deep that they can't stand to share space with you, can't stand to give you even the smallest piece of belonging. That's how strong their bitterness runs. So when you start noticing those patterns of exclusion, when you realize the silence around you isn't an accident, but a decision, take it for what it really is. Because when someone consistently shuts you out, it's not misunderstanding and it's not forgetfulness, it's hate. And it's hate a lot. There's something about pain that reveals people's true feelings toward you. Because when life hits you hard, the people who care about you can't help but feel it too. They lean in, they show concern, they hurt alongside you even if they don't fully understand what you're going through. But when someone hates you, it's the opposite. Your pain becomes their entertainment. Your heartbreak becomes their satisfaction. And they may not say it out loud, but if you look closely, you'll see it. They take joy in your suffering. It shows up in the little reactions first. Maybe you're sharing something difficult you're going through, and while most people would show empathy, they seem almost amused. Maybe they nod politely, but there's a flicker of something in their expression that doesn't quite match the situation. A small smirk, a spark in their eyes, an energy that feels more like excitement than concern. That's not compassion. That's hate revealing itself in the moment you're most vulnerable. Sometimes it doesn't even come through in their face, but in their words. Instead of comfort, they say things like, "Well, that's what you get," or "I saw that coming." They don't offer support, they offer judgment. And make no mistake, that judgment isn't about helping you learn. It's about making sure you feel the weight of your struggle as if somehow your pain is proof they've been right about you all along. Hate doesn't just notice your hardship, it thrives on it. What makes this so damaging is how subtle it can be. They won't always laugh in your face when you fall, but they'll laugh behind your back. They'll retell your struggles to others, not with concern, but with delight. They'll spin your lowest points into stories that fuel their own satisfaction. Because when they hate you, your wounds become their entertainment. And the more you hurt, the more they feel like they're winning. It's especially clear when you compare their response to others. If someone else goes through a hard time, they might show care, they might step in, they might offer help, but when it's you, they distance themselves, or worse. They find a way to highlight your pain even more. They point out your mistakes, they magnify your weaknesses, and they do it at a time when you're already struggling to hold yourself together. That's not just a lack of empathy. That's someone finding joy in the fact that you're down. And let's be honest, sometimes you can just feel it. You can feel when someone is glad things didn't work out for you. You can feel when your loss gives them a little boost. It's in the energy they carry, in the way they don't try to hide their comfort in your discomfort. And that feeling cuts deeper than any insult ever could, because it's one thing for someone not to care about your pain, it's another for them to celebrate it. The truth is, when a person hates you, your struggle is their satisfaction. They may not clap out loud, but in their heart, they're applauding every setback, every heartbreak, every stumble. And once you recognize that, once you see that they smile when you suffer, there's no mistaking what it really means. That's not someone who's neutral about you. That's not someone who simply doesn't understand you. That's someone who hates you and hates you more than they'll ever admit. Hate rarely sits still. It doesn't just keep its distance or quietly step aside. It moves, it works.